The last 40 years have seen the two parties in America unable to promote the interests of the American people. Government policies since the 1970s do not reflect the beliefs and wishes of the people, but instead promote the global wealth interests of those who have bought our politicians. Our government's scope is too large, its involvement in our economy and culture too great, and it is a hindrance to both liberty and fairness, as elite corporations and super-wealthy individuals can craft regulations and laws in their favor, while taking away freedom and opportunity from those without powerful lobbyists. No matter who the American people vote for, jobs keep going overseas, our debt continues to swell, and our rights continue to be eroded by a sprawling federal government that is on the verge of becoming a total police state. It is time for us to leave behind the ideas and concepts that were forged in the Cold War, the aftermath of the Great Depression and World War II. It is time for people to return to the basic political and philosophical ideals that allowed for the greatness of this nation. We therefore advocate the following set of ideas as essential to fixing the political culture and institutions of America. 1. Man is part of a universe that is made up of things. Physical objects in motion being acted upon by forces. Yet we do not have direct access to those things, but are aware of them thanks to our senses, which allow our brains to create a simulation of reality in our minds. 2. Man is able to reason, to make up ideas and theories about this outer world, but it is the inner world of his spirit and mind that he only knows with certainty. All men are alike in this level of access to understanding the outer world. 3. All men have an urge to survive. Events and actions that threaten a man's survival are threats to the man, who has a natural right to preserve himself. Any man's attempt to destroy another in his persons or his things is an attacker, and the victim has pre-existing right to self-defense. 4. As a reasoning beings in the world of physical objects, the human has a right not only to defend himself from physical attack, but to speak his mind as well, expressing his understanding of the world. This is fundamental in that, like using his body to defend himself, men may also use their minds and their words to try and persuade others to recognize their understanding of the world. We are ultimately responsible for our own actions, to take care of ourselves and our families. 5. As individuals, our inalienable rights that stem from self-defense and freedom of speech carry through to religious practice. Men as a reasoning beings should be responsible to themselves alone for what they believe as regards the question of God, Holy Scriptures, and the afterlife. These beliefs should be arrived at voluntarily, by adults, who understand the impact these questions and beliefs have on believers. 6. From the last point, we can deduce that all organizations of men should voluntary in their nature, whether they be churches, businesses, or social clubs. People should be free to join any group that accepts them and free to leave any group then they choose. Forcing someone to become part of something against their will is antithetical to the ideal of liberty, and should be prohibited. Fairness is essential to freedom. Protecting one's self extends not only to blocking attacks, but also to being left alone by those you do not choose to associate with freely. 7. Governments throughout history have been organizations of men who come together to exert force on other individuals within their fiscal territory. These institutions have almost always abused and violated the rights of men. The only viable and legitimate purpose of a government is to punish those who disrespect and violate the rights of their fellow men. 8. The free society of reasoning men can be ensured not through reliance on an enlightened despot or a committee of experts, but must be based on the will of the people, the desires of the majority, constrained by an understanding and respect for natural rights. This requires vigilance, intelligence, and education among the citizens, to preserve their liberties and protect the rights of future citizens. 9. The values of the Bible and the morality of Jesus, by our reason, seem to be the correct way to live and produce an enduring, stable, and just society. Perfection is not to be expected among humans, but these morals teach us to live in harmony with the laws of creation, set down by our Creator. Yet this is our choice, our judgment, and we can only gain followers through persuasion. We tolerate the choice of others not to accept the truth. 10. A government made up of elected representatives of citizens, sworn to uphold constitutional principles of liberty and justice, is the best method to maintain a society of liberty. Furthermore, large Centralized models of representative government are dangerous because they create a small, powerful elite, with wide-ranging authority. This keeps them distant from the people who elected them and gives them power over many who have no ability to remove them from office. The more local a government is, the more responsive and in control its citizens can be. We therefore conclude that a federal structure, with states retaining most powers, is key. This is the surest model to get a government that is of limited scope, that spends in times defending our borders, arresting and punishing evildoers, and upholding a code of fairness in business and political life. We must come to a new understanding of America. Beliefs cannot be forced on people through federal courts and government agencies. People should be allowed to think what they want, to educate their children in the way they want, to make money without intrusion or government thievery, to enter into agreements with other individuals as equals, to be responsible for ourselves, to not have government pick our pocket to take care of those will not work, but instead allow us the discretion to choose our modes and moments of charity to those who are in need, instead of having our paychecks raided so we can pay for social programs that do not work and actively erode the values and social system we favor. The needed apparatus for achieving this government almost exists. Our Constitution, as it is written, not as it is subjectively interpreted by overimportant Supreme Court justices, motivated by ego and ideology, sets out the government with these purposes and limitations. Abuse of the language and being too generous in interpreting certain clauses that broaden the reach of government into nearly every area of life may make the adding of a clarifying amendment to war too needed, but in general we have the document. It is the administration, the regime, the greater political-economic power system that has pulled off a gradual, disguised coup d'etat, pushing forth false doctrines about the meaning of the Constitution that blur in issues to allow more and more power for the government, at the expense of our God-given liberty. Protecting our liberty, our rights, our borders, and upholding justice in the land are the legitimate responsibilities of government. Anything beyond this is encroachment and leads to tyranny. As a reasonable, thinking beings with an innate drive and right to self-preservation, we believe the only good government is one that tries to act not as a brain for society, but as a vitamin to it. We favor government that is constructive to society, rather than one which is destructive, and tears down what we the people built for ourselves, to favor their agendas and their schemes for progress into the world of tomorrow. We are not anarchists. We believe justice requires enforcement of the rules of fairness, in courts where evidence is presented and a man is rationally judged by his peers. We believe in the sanctity of life, that revolution, the best revolution, is a bloodless revolution, and that criminals and tyrants should be brought to justice with due process and respect for their God-given rights, regardless of their heinous crimes. Our borders to require defending, and a logical military with a long-term security strategy that respects the rights of other cities to choose their own governments, while still ensuring our safety and stability. We are not about forcing people to believe what we believe when it comes to religion. We want you to exercise the liberty God gave you as a being made in His image, with the powers of reason and the ability to create, to choose, and to do, not constrained or directed under threat of coercion by any combination of men, but based on your voluntary choices. In the end, it all comes down to protecting the things we think are most valuable because they are the craftswork of God, whom we love, and seek to honor in this life. We love creation and you are part of it. You deserve respect. We must rise up from within this nation, to be men who stand for morality, who stand for ethics, and justice, and virtue. We must be Christian knights of liberty, patrolling the internet, speaking out for the rights of our brothers and sisters whenever statists try to push their agenda. Christian libertarianism, the last great hope for a just America.